What's the dumbest thing you've ever seen tattooed on someone? Fish or poison? The tattoo mishap. One time, I saw a girl with a big Chinese character tattooed on her shoulder. She was so proud of it, telling everyone it meant poison. But here's the kicker. It actually means fish. Imagine thinking you're walking around with something edgy, only to find out you're essentially advertising your love for seafood. I don't even know if she ever realized the mistake, but I still think about that one a lot. It's a classic case of trusting the wrong translation. Subway's eat fresh in a very wrong place. This one happened while I was working in surgery. A woman, about to go under anesthesia, apologized in advance for her stupid tattoos. We all laughed it off, but once she was asleep and we got her prepped for the procedure, let's just say we understood the apology. Right above her pubic area, in full Subway font, was "Eat Fresh." I swear, we couldn't stop laughing. Like, who even gets that tattooed there? But wait, it gets better. Another woman had a cartoon cowboy tattooed on her lower abdomen, but after a tummy tuck, only his tiny little cowboy hat was left. That tattoo went from weird to tragic real quick. The naked lady cover-up gone wrong. I once knew a guy who made the ultimate breakup tattoo mistake. He had his high school girlfriend's name tattooed on his arm, and after they broke up, he didn't think to remove it. Instead, he fixed it by getting a giant tattoo of a naked woman to cover it up. Now, I've got to wonder, how does that conversation go with future girlfriends? Oh yeah, this used to be Karen, but now it's just a random naked lady. True north, the compass. That doesn't point anywhere. I had this conversation with a guy who had a compass tattooed on his chest. He was super proud of it and told me he got it so he would always know where true north is. I asked him, wouldn't that change depending on which direction you're facing? He stared at me for a second, totally confused, and just said, no, true north is always the same. I gave up trying to explain, but it's still hilarious to think that he believes he's got some magic tattoo that defies the laws of physics. Free tattoo. Turns out she got no charge. This reminds me of a woman who wanted the Chinese character for free tattooed on her lower back. Sounds pretty cool, right? But instead of free as in freedom, she ended up with the character for no charge, like something you'd see on a sale sign. To this day, I wonder if anyone ever told her, or if she's walking around thinking she's got this deep philosophical tattoo, when really it's just something you'd see at a supermarket. Baker's dozen mishap. This reminds me of a friend who told me about a concept album he was working on. He called it Baker's Dozen and was super proud of the idea. The only problem? His album had 12 tracks, not 13. We tried explaining that a baker's dozen means 13, but he just kept saying, yeah, it's a concept album. It's like, dude, the concept is wrong, but he couldn't care less. It's still one of the funniest misunderstandings I've ever heard. All right, y'all, I need to hear your wildest tattoo stories. From misspelled words to questionable choices. What's the craziest or funniest ink you've seen? Drop your stories in the comments, and while you're at it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next batch of insane tattoo tales we're diving into next. The accept versus accept debacle. One of the most unfortunate tattoos I've ever seen was on a woman who proudly displayed the phrase, love me or hate me, just accept me. That's right. Accept instead of asterisk, accept asterisk. The worst part? Not a single person she showed it to ever caught the mistake, or maybe they did, but didn't have the heart to tell her. Can you imagine walking around with a typo like that for the rest of your life? I kept quiet, but to this day, I wonder if anyone has told her, or if she's still strutting around with that grammatical blunder. Tattoo typos, your buddy, forever. This reminds me of a comment someone made about tattoo typos. The guy said, that's so sad. Imagine having a typo permanently on your buddy. Now, aside from the irony of the misspellings in the comment itself, it really got me thinking about all the people out there with tattoos that don't quite say what they intended. It's funny until it happens to you, and then it's a lifetime of explaining why you have accept instead of accept. Daddy's little... What now? One time, I saw this crust punk guy who had what looked like a goatee tattooed on his face, but on closer inspection, it was actually the words, Daddy's little fuckhole, right under his chin. I had to do a double take to make sure I was seeing it correctly, and that wasn't even the worst part. I also saw a woman with one true bicth tattooed on her neck, as if no one could proofread for her beforehand. How does someone sit through a tattoo session and not realize there's a glaring mistake being permanently inked on them? The token font mishap. I once saw a variation of that tattoo, but not where you'd expect it to be. Instead of on the chin, someone had the same "Daddy's Little Fuckhole" tattooed around a very different orifice, using a font meant to resemble the style from Lord of the Rings. It was so elaborate that at first glance, you'd think it was some ancient elvish text. But nope, it was just an unfortunate, vulgar phrase wrapped in fantasy font. The sad part? I'm not even sure which one came first, the goatee version or the one down there, choosing her own name over her kids. This one still makes me shake my head. A woman I know was trying to decide between getting her own name or her child's name tattooed on her forearm. And in the ultimate act of self-love, she went with her own name. I guess it's a good reminder of who she is in case she forgets. But the fact that she even debated between her kid and herself? That's wild. Memento. For real. It's like that movie asterisk, Memento asterisk, but real life. You know, where the guy tattoos things on himself to remember? Except in this case, she's just making sure she doesn't forget her own identity. But hey, at least it wasn't something like "Don't trust him" or "Find the killer" written backwards on her chest. The last name tramp stamp. Speaking of odd name placements, I knew someone in high school who got her asterisk last name asterisk tattooed as a tramp stamp. Yes, right there above her lower back. It was trendy at the time to get your name inked on yourself, but her last name? Now she's in her 30s and has to explain why her family name is tattooed in such an, asterisk unique asterisk location. Let's just say family gatherings must be a blast. A literal handbag tattoo. Then there was my ex's family. They all went on vacation to Thailand and decided to get matching tattoos of the word family in Thai as a way to commemorate the trip. They were so proud of it until they got back, and a Thai friend of mine pointed out that their tattoos actually said handbag. That's right, handbag, not asterisk family asterisk. And to this day, they all walk around with matching handbag tattoos, thinking it's a symbol of familial love. Always wear underwear, the Latin pun. I'll never forget my friend's dumb tattoo. When everyone was getting serious Latin phrases inked on their bodies, he decided to get "Semper ubi sub ubi" tattooed on his arm. It literally means, always wear underwear. It's a Latin pun that no one really gets unless they know the language, but the guy absolutely loves it. Honestly, it's so dumb, but I have to admit, it's kind of hilarious. Misspelling your own kid's name. My youngest brother's girlfriend takes the cake, though. She got her children's names tattooed on her, which is totally normal and sweet. Except she misspelled her own son's name. Instead of Brandon, she got Braden. When I asked her about it, she casually said she didn't know how to spell his name. How do you not know how to spell your own kid's name when you're getting it tattooed permanently on your body? Just, wow. Redneck relationship updates. Back in the day, when I worked at Electronics Boutique, there was this redneck woman who would come in every month with a new boyfriend. And on her arm? She had a string of tattooed names, each one belonging to her previous boyfriends, and each one crossed out when they broke up. Every time she showed up with a new guy, there was a fresh name, crossed out and replaced. It was like her skin was a permanent relationship status update. Honestly, it was kind of fascinating, in a morbid sort of way. Simplified Chinese. Tattoo, lost in translation. One time during a training session, there was this girl with a Chinese tattoo on the back of her neck. Another girl, who happened to be Chinese, burst out laughing when she saw it. The wearer thought it said strength, but in reality it just said simplified Chinese. Like, she didn't even get a word. She got a label for the asterisk language asterisk itself. That has to be the ultimate mistranslation fail. The April Fool's tattoo prank gone wrong. A guy got a food company's logo tattooed on his asterisk forehead asterisk for a cash prize, only to find out later that it was an April Fool's Day prank. Can you imagine? He thought he was getting some serious cash, but instead, he ended up with a permanent ad on his face. The crazy thing is, they actually paid out after he raised hell about it. They tried to play it off like it was just a joke, but you can't advertise something like that and not follow through. The whole situation reminded me of that asterisk Simpsons asterisk episode where Bart won an elephant from a radio station. Classic case of a joke gone way too far. Homemade tattoos by a baby daddy. I have to talk about the homemade tattoos my daughter got from her baby daddy. They are asterisk tragic asterisk. Like, you can tell he had no idea what he was doing. Every time I see them, I shake my head and wonder what in the world possessed her to let that man come anywhere near her with a tattoo gun. She's going to regret those for the rest of her life. And speaking of bad decisions, someone else shared that their daughter bought a tattoo gun at 18 and used her own legs as a canvas. Now she looks like a half-shaken Etch-a-Sketch. It's funny, but also kind of sad. The whiskey bottle tattoo dilemma. I once had a friend who thought it would be cool to get a whiskey bottle tattooed on his thigh. The twist? He didn't even like whiskey and stopped drinking altogether shortly after getting it. Now he's stuck with this giant reminder of something he doesn't even enjoy. It's like one of those permanent decisions you make in the moment and then immediately regret. But hey, at least it's not as bad as the guy who got tattooed in a stencil font on his bicep. It's the ultimate meta joke that's both dumb and clever at the same time. The white power turned white powder mishap. This one's just poetic justice. A guy walked into a tattoo shop asking for a white power tattoo. Instead, the tattoo artist inked white powder across his back. The guy was furious, but the artist played it off like he misheard him. They even ended up in a legal battle over it. For months, the guy had to walk around with white powder on his back, hiding it under shirts until he could afford to get it removed. It was a glorious example of chaotic good, and I think we can all agree the world was a better place with that mistake on his skin for a while. The tattooed nipples on her butt. One of the weirdest tattoos I've ever heard about is a girl who had asterisk nipples asterisk tattooed on her butt. Yes, you read that right. I don't know what the thought process was behind that one, but it certainly leaves an impression. Interestingly, some tattoo artists do realistic tattoos for people who've lost body parts or had mastectomies, which is amazing. But asterisk nipples on your butt asterisk? That's a whole other level of weird. Someone even joked about getting a whole sleeve of nipples, and now I can't get that ridiculous image out of my head. The Virgin Mary and Wonder Bread. One time, I saw a tattoo of the Virgin Mary cradling a loaf of Wonder Bread. I have no idea what the backstory was, but I kind of want to know. Was it a religious metaphor gone wrong? A deep love for sandwiches? Either way, it's one of those tattoos you just can't unsee. It's right up there with the guy who had England European Champions 2024 inches tattooed on his leg. Talk about a premature celebration. Pay up or not. A guy I knew came into some money and decided to get knuckle tattoos that said pay up. The problem? He tried to get fancy with the $sign and an arrow, and it ended up looking like pays up. Everyone who saw it read it wrong, so he had to go back and cover up the whole mess. Now his fingers just say pay, and there's a giant arrow that's almost as thick as his finger. The best part? He blew through all his money in 6 months and had to move back in with his mom. Talk about irony. A porn star on his arm, without knowing. A friend of mine got a really detailed tattoo of a girl with a robotic arm and a blade. He let the artist design it based on his description, and he loved how it turned out. But here's the kicker. The girl in the tattoo is actually porn actress Charlotte Sartry, and he has asterisk no idea asterisk. It's mildly amusing that he's walking around with a portrait of a famous adult actress inked on him, completely unaware of who she is. It's one of those moments where you kind of want to tell him, but you also don't want to ruin his excitement over the tattoo. Simplified Chinese. The ultimate translation. Fail. I once trained with a girl who had a Chinese character tattooed on the back of her neck. She thought it said strength, but a Chinese classmate burst out laughing when she saw it. Turns out, the tattoo didn't say strength at all. It just said simplified Chinese. Imagine thinking you've got this powerful, meaningful tattoo, only to find out it's literally just a label for the language. Talk about lost in translation. The Cat and the Hoarding Sister. This is a tough one, but it's a necessary story to explain how awful the tattoo is. My sister has always had a bad habit of hoarding animals. She brings home way too many and barely takes care of them. About a year or two ago, she brought home a rescue dog, a pretty big one. According to my oldest nephew, they were specifically told that the dog wasn't good with small animals. But my sister, in her usual stubborn way, insisted that everything would be fine and the dog would mesh with their other pets. Fast forward about a month. My sister and her family were out of the house when the dog got into a fight with one of their cats. Now, this wasn't just any cat. This was a family pet who had been around for over 10 years, and it belonged to my brother-in-law and nephew. The poor cat was literally torn apart by the dog, ripped limb from limb. And to make matters worse, it was my oldest nephew who found the remains of the cat in the dog's mouth, with blood and organs all over the place. Fast forward again to a few months ago. My sister, in her bizarre way of dealing with things, decided to get a tattoo in memory of the cat. She sent a picture of the tattoo to my nephew, and he completely lost it. If it hadn't been for her obsession with hoarding animals, that cat would still be alive. The tattoo was like pouring salt on an open wound. Honda, logo neck tattoo. There was this guy I saw once with a massive Honda logo tattooed on his neck. I guess he was a really big fan of the car brand. To each their own, I suppose, but I can't imagine loving any brand enough to permanently ink it on my body. I get it if you're a die-hard car enthusiast, but having a Honda logo smack dab on your neck just feels like a strange choice. It's like walking around with a corporate sponsorship that you didn't get paid for, from Jack Sparrow to something else. Back in college, I took a class with this girl who looked like a stereotypical chain-smoking biker chick. One day, she came to class in a sleeveless top, and I caught a glimpse of a tattoo across her shoulder blades. At first, I thought it said Jack Sparrow. I figured she must have been a huge Pirates of the Caribbean fan, kind of weird, but not unheard of. A few weeks later, she wore a strapless top, and that's when I realized I'd been very wrong. The letters that had been hidden by her top weren't what I thought they were. Her tattoo actually said Cocksparrer. Turns out it was a tribute to the punk band, but for weeks, I had been convinced she was just way too into Johnny Depp. **, SS lightning bolts and white power tattoo on a black lesbian **. This one's wild and honestly hard to wrap my head around. A friend of mine, who's a black lesbian, had SS lightning bolts and the words white power tattooed on her, with a swastika replacing the O in power. I know, it sounds insane. Apparently, she got the tattoo during a rebellious phase, and it still blows my mind every time I see it. She's long since distanced herself from that past, but I can't even imagine the look she must get. It's like the most extreme example of how tattoos can stick around to haunt you, and not just because of the ink itself, but because of what it represents. That tattoo is just layers upon layers of irony and regret. **, Pink Panther. Tramp stamp **. I knew someone years ago who got a massive tramp stamp of the Pink Panther, yep, the cartoon character, smoking a cigarette. I still wonder what the thought process was behind it. Like, of all the things you could put on your body forever, why **that**? I get it, people love quirky tattoos, but Pink Panther, butt crack adjacent? That's one you can't explain away easily. Every time she'd show it off, people would ask why **, and all she could say was that she thought it looked cool. Nothing in Arabic **. One of the more clever tattoos I've seen was a guy I worked with who got the word nothing tattooed in Arabic. Whenever anyone asked him what it said, he'd reply, nothing. He thought he was so smart because technically he was answering the question, but also it was like this joke that people didn't get right away. Honestly, it just seemed like he was trying too hard to feel smart, but every time I saw it, I couldn't help but laugh at how proud he was of such a pointless tattoo. **, Woody Woodpecker on a toilet. **. Back in 1990, when tattoos were nowhere near as mainstream as they are today, I met a guy covered in the worst tattoos imaginable. The absolute worst one was a giant tattoo of Woody Woodpecker, sitting on a toilet, reading a newspaper. He tried to explain to me that it was supposed to be some sort of political statement, but for the life of me, I can't remember what political point he thought he was making. All I know is that every time someone saw it, they were too distracted by the absurdity to even listen to whatever deep message he thought it had. To this day, I think about it and wonder how many times he had to explain why he chose that * tattoo. Spit on that thing. Above the genitals **. Then there's the one that truly takes the cake. Someone had the phrase spit on that thing tattooed right above their genitals. I mean, come on, of all the things to permanently ink on your body, **, it's not just tasteless, it's absolutely cringeworthy. Imagine having to explain that to someone, or worse, having them find out on their own in a more intimate moment. It's one of those tattoos that you asterisk no asterisk will haunt them forever. And yet, at the time, they probably thought it was the funniest, most rebellious thing they could get.